Oh, man, that was really good. Let's just stop this. Are you guys able to talk? Did I mute? I didn't mute you. That's pretty neat.
Nope.
He says, if I didn't know shit from Shinola, could I do any worse? No. Again, he's pretending. He does art that shows that the president is an automated presidential surrogate. He even has a video on You Are What You Is showing Reagan as a robotoid, and that's in 1981 when Reagan just came in. But he's saying there that he could remain potent because he stays awake and would work longer hours. Now that's Bob. Bob would say that. Stay awake and work longer hours, more than Reagan. So, what do you think of that? Ionic resonance right there in that statement.
Yes. He's definitely hardworking. I mean, I saw an interview.
Yeah, you saw an interview. Yeah.
Did you call me?
Saw where he was a host on a television show.
Yes.
FNN.
Yes. He did some
Have you ever seen that?
Around the world about. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're saying he worked hard on that?
Well, it's just not just work hard. It was just that, to see him as a musician, but then he was hosting he did a lot of things before he passed form.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting to see him, a clean-cut haircut and hot.
Right. Roxy, do you have any thoughts so far?
I'm eating. I agree.
Okay. Well, we'll let you. You agree that Zappa could be president, even though he didn't know shit from Shinola. But you see, the president, Bruce Powell wrote about how. Let me say this point. Another part of
I like his idea that he wanted to limit the government to defense and things that really just could be done by the government, but he wanted to take government out of industry and corporations because they even
but
for example, the Army even finances movies and they're shaping the environment in many ways that Zappa thought was not right.
Right. Now, McLuhan said one of the major effects of electronic society is that the average pagan citizen would support state dominance. They identify with the government and with almost totalitarianism. He said that was so. There's a major effect of the global theater that Zappa, as one human being, couldn't stop. If humans in general, because they're discarnate, they're chemical bodies everywhere, they want a sense of order, so they impose it on the government structure and make government become the be-all, end-all. So that was an effect that McLuhan saw on the bottom-up level. Zappa's operating for the top-down idea, that he could go in and influence the world if he had the microphone. And since he's still out on Who Are the Brain Police, we'll have to remain out too on whether that could be done.
The president is really just entertainment figure. Is no longer relevant, and there cannot be any more any nations and any governments as we think they exist.
Right.
So that's why you're taking over, because it's going to be a new situation.
It has to be a new kind of environment. So so Zappa said he did well in high school only in the civics course. So he's always interested in American government. So because he was interested in it, does that mean he was naive about it? Did he actually sincerely believe that the president was an important position? Ian said many of the elites believe, just put a dog in there. Just have a dog be the president. Wander around. It's the same figurehead role.
So it's hard to tell Reagan or Trump.
Yeah. Right. So it's hard to tell whether Zappa was naive in that point or not. He could have been satirical. He knew it would be another part of his art project. You had to be a global programmer, so attempt to become the president. That's part of what the artist has to do. You have to become a global programmer, what McLuhan called becoming Egyptian. So at least Zappa probably knew what he was doing, and he had to include that function in his tetrad management of his own image. So what was the next point? Let's go to the next.
Well, once you mentioned from the beginning, he had that agenda.
Yes, he did. He wanted to become president.
And he was aware that politics were just like an entertainment type of...
Yeah. Oh, that's what he said. He says, people who have talent don't take the job because who'd want to do it? But Zappa said, well, I've got talent, and I'm an entertainer, so I'm the perfect candidate. Okay, so I'm going to now play the next video, which features Gail. Just a second.
When you get to do a PSA, I've always wanted to do one, you're supposed to be able to do this, speak clearly and importantly into the camera. And this signifies sincerity. My name is Gail Zappa, and Frank Zappa said these two things. One, democracy doesn't work unless you participate. And two, and perhaps even more importantly for all you women out there, keep the government out of your underpants. There's 22 million women unregistered to vote. You have to vote. So get yourself registered. All you Libras out there, you still have time.
Libras. So, remember I was telling you that voting is participation? And Zappa says...
When you get to do a PSA, I've always wanted... My name is Gail Zappa. Democracy doesn't work unless you participate. And two...
I would say that you don't have to have millions participate to have the fact of democracy. As long as there looks like millions are participating, that's all you need, because it's a participatory phenomenon. So... She says, democracy doesn't work unless you participate. Well, democracy is participation. A simulation, a porno version of participation, or a porno version of democracy. But I would have to quibble over the word participate there. How about you guys? Do you have any corrections or ad-libs to that? No?
No.
Are you finding this part boring? Are you with me on this?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just eating. That's why I don't say anything.
Okay. All right, so we did that one. Yeah, register to vote. Okay, here's the next one.
If you're 18 years old and you have not registered to vote, go do it. You need to pay attention to what these people in office are doing to your future. Register to vote now.
Okay, there's that one.
Yeah,
Ion LA presents The Legends of Laurel Canyon.
What'd you say, Roxy?
Look what Bob is doing to your future. Go vote.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, it says The Legends of Laurel Canyon.
October 13th at 8:30 p.m. on ABC7.
What do you do for money? That's what we should do right now. I have a rock and roll band.
You know, when Frank Zappa first came out, everybody thought he was a clown. Everybody thought he was sort of the court jester of rock and roll. He was actually the guy that every single musician looked up to and said, this guy is an absolute genius.
In addition to being an incredible musician and one of the great composers of our time, there was one more thing that was very important to Frank Zappa.
He loved America as the sort of bastion, the last bastion of the potential for the greatest democracy that could possibly exist. I think it's important that people do understand that it is important to vote. Frank is the first person to register people in concert halls. And I put that on every record. So every record that you pick up now says, vote, register to vote. But as a citizen, and this is something that Frank would say too, you have rights as a citizen, and it's important that you know what they are. But you have responsibilities as a citizen, and it's even more important that you know what those are, and that you participate if you want a democracy. Don't let those guys get away with it. Vote them out of office if they're interfering with your right to be a free person.
Register to vote and watch The Legends of Laurel Canyon Saturday, October 13th, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. on ABC7 Los Angeles.
Okay.
Having recently. People who are artistic have always been a threatening force to people who are dictators. And even though we call this country a democracy, it's turning out to be more and more a candy-coated dictatorship. And so it seems fairly logical that the people who would like to convert this country into a candy-coated dictatorship would do everything they could to make it impossible for people who communicate through the arts to say anything that might resemble a message like the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. That's the thing that they're most afraid of. Anybody who will say anything that equates to the emperor's not wearing any clothes, for some reason that scares the piss out of them. And so they do everything they can to stamp it out. And we've seen a growing trend toward this since 1985 with the emergence of the PMRC to try and put a clamp on what is said in rock records. And now, lo and behold, the Motion Picture Association of America has finally woken up briefly to smell the coffee. They've just realized that in 46 of our states, there are over 300 different pieces of legislation designed to create regional or local censorship boards to control motion pictures. Suddenly, they realize that they go, ow, now. Because if all of these pieces of legislation succeed, they will no longer be able to release the blockbuster hit. They can't do a mass release with 2,500 prints all over the United States and make $50 million in a weekend, because if one little jerk in one little community can keep that film from going into the theaters in that area, they're going to lose billions of dollars. And it is finally, it had to come to that before Jack Valente would make a statement that, oh, there's something wrong. I mean, they didn't come out and make any statement that would help the recording artists when the struggle began with the rock musicians. But now they're feeling the pinch, and I wonder what's going to happen with them.
In a democracy, are there any controls that are valid over artists?
No. Why? Why does an artist need to be controlled in a democracy? In a democracy, everybody gets to say what's on their mind. Now, the problem with a democracy is, and I've been having just nightmares about democracy recently, because within the last few years, I've become more and more interested in getting people to vote and register and do all this stuff. And I've been active in that. And I'm going, yeah, let's get democracy going. And I'm going, wait a minute. We've got a big problem. because you can't really have a democracy. If one man's vote equals another man's vote, then one man's education has to equal another man's education, so that people have not only the basic machinery to assimilate the data from which they will draw their conclusion and cast their vote. I mean, you have to have that as a basis for a democracy. And when you have a society where too many people can't read or write, how can you say, we all have an equal voice in the government? And when certain candidates don't have access to the information dispensing machinery without paying millions upon millions of dollars, that limits the dialogue quite a bit for anyone who doesn't agree with the sitting administration, or especially with the Republican Party. And not to single them out as the biggest evil that ever befell the United States, but recently they've come pretty close, simply because in the communist system, if you are a party member, even though they talk about we're all equal, we're brothers, and it's all supposed to be evened out, it's not. Party members have perks, they have special treatment, and they get it right. If you are a member of the Republican Party in the United States, the treatment resembles very much what happens in the Soviet Union if you are a Communist Party member. Certain things will not happen to you. Certain things can be done for you. In fact, if you can imagine this, I received in the mail, even though I am a registered Democrat right now, that may not last long, I'm going to shred that, I got this blue card. I was even going to bring it today, this blue plastic card that says I am a member of the Republican Party. Blue plastic, like a credit card, gold embossed, eagle, the whole business, a serial number. It was just like, a Communist Party thing. So I'm saying, what would a guy do with a thing like this? Show it to a policeman in case he was going to get a ticket? What do you do with this? It's an influence peddling kind of a scheme. I recall throughout the 80s receiving fundraising mail from the Republican Party that was basically an invitation to participate in insider trading, and it went like this. How would you like to join the California Golden Circle? You pay $2,500 to get in, $1,500 a year in dues. Now here's what you get. Advance notice of upcoming legislation, invitations to dinners and social events. Can't quote it exactly, but I'm getting pretty close to the letter. That will be attended by the people from California who do the business, who really make the deals. So in other words, if you pay, you're going to be invited to these dinners where you get to sit next to these people who make the big deals, and it's like, inviting me to join that club, it's baffling. Then I get another letter. That one was signed by Claire W. Bergner. And I got another letter inviting me for $2,500. I could go on this junket to Washington, D.C., where I get to attend a series of luncheons and dinners with D.C. political luminaries, and they give you a list, and you are supposed to check off on the list who you want to be seated next to at these luncheons. And then there's another box you had to check off that said, it's always possible that the president himself will come to one of these, so we need you to give us permission to run a security check on you and just authorize here. There's something weird about doing politics, mail-order politics that way, and inviting people to get the edge on a business competitor by joining a certain political party, paying money. And to carry this to the most ridiculous extreme, at the point where George Bush takes office, I remember being on a plane in Europe and picking up the International Herald Tribune and seeing a front-page article about the distress of career diplomats at being stepped over by all of these political appointees that Bush had put in as the main, consuls and whatever all over the world. But basically these were people who couldn't speak the local language, had no knowledge of diplomacy, but had given $300,000 or more to the campaign. And throughout the last decade, you see examples, where influence peddling, $1 equals, so many points towards your career as a diplomat. What do you do with that? How can you have confidence in government anymore? And then you look at the media, and they just look the other way.
Yes. Basically, the question or the trigger is simply this: to most of us, the surprise of our lifetime. None of us expected to see the wall come down and communism fade. Your feelings?
I expected the wall to come down. I knew it was going to come down. I'd even given concrete proposals on how to bring it down with class, and had spoken to various people in different places that led me to believe it was going to come down. I knew it was coming down, and I watched it on television. I was delighted.
Why do you think communism fell apart?
Because let's look at our two countries. We both made the same mistake. We spent our national fortune on weapons. The Russians were smarter because they realized, whoa, listen, did we need to do that? Right now, you could go to the Soviet Union and make a deal to have a converted military factory to build consumer goods. They want to make that deal. The best labor in the Soviet Union is available to do that. They have hundreds of these plants that they're willing to convert. None in the U.S. So that's why I say they might be a little bit smarter.
Okay, hold it.
Okay.
Okay, that was interesting. It reminded me an earlier dialogue. Zappa says he warns the society that if they don't pay attention to the kids or acknowledge the kids, they can become a real problem. I have Zappa in the McLuhan quadrant on my tiny note chart, and the Shakespearean parallel is King Lear. So there's Zappa talking like an old man about the kids. Doing a King Lear there. So that was a good quote. And what do you think about what we heard?
Like you.
Yes.
Well, I think it's very interesting because we see type of privileges that are the new court, how the new princes do foreign relationships before they will get married. And now it's you just pay an amount and get to eat with the right person and do business.
Is that blood money? Is that blood money? Blood money.
No.
You just pay blood money.
But there is also this idea that the whole of America became like the prince, because when you put in your bills, in God we trust, this is like the justification of being the police in the world and saying who's right, who's bad, and invading countries like God is on your side, and he's saying America is the one that has the right to rule. Instead of one house or one prince, is this part of the empire, because LaRouche said it's just a front of the British Empire, but they're not working now with a house, but with the country as a corporation.
So you're saying America, first two letters, AM, Android meme. So you're saying today the prince is not a human being. The prince is an environment. You'll see it in my early charts, the bottom-up chart. America is the ideal country, ideal image. So it is the prince. It is the model of what's coming. So is that what you're saying? That America is the environment, is the prince today?
Yes, because
is that what you're saying?
How does America justify the invasions and the wars? It's like God is on your side, and you are the ones that have to say,
we are the divine country.
Punishing or
the divine country.
Yes. So this is the idea of the divine right to rule. God is
So,
like God assigned the prince and the pope. Now he assigned all this territory.
And since I've got the divine blood, no wonder the android me mirrors me. They're trying to be me. I used to say this for years, the android me imitates me. We're now coming up with good reasons why. If I've got the best blood, then America, the android meme, since it is the blood prince, it will mime me. That explains anachrony. And the elation
the
roars.
Technology of the blood.
Yes. There was another idea.
Because this interface that is the blood is the most powerful technology because it makes you God again.
Right, so blood, as I have an Up the Air for Andy, has become advertising. Branding is blood. In the machinic version of the Prince, the blood is advertising, circulation of signs. Now, that brings me to my question, Roxy. What was it like to grow up in Mexico and know that you were not part of the divine country? You were a second-class global citizen. How did that affect you?
No, actually...
Did you have any awareness?
For example, the Aztecs and... No, because the Aztecs and the Toltecs believed they were the center of the universe. And the big temple of Mexico City marked the center of the cosmos. And you saw there was this philosophy after the Mexican Revolution that we were the cosmic race. Also in America, it's like a cocktail of many different types of people. And there's also the fact that after the conquest, 9 out of 10 died 1 year after the conquest, and we are the descendants of the one that survived. So, in a way, I mean, the people that live in Mexico City, the amount of stress and the things they have to go through every day, I don't think any other person that was not born there can survive that. The stress of the crowds, of the bigger distances, the competition, it's really extreme. It's something that only mega cities experience, and the people that come from these cities. After that, for example, for me, Berlin is like a small town. It's very peaceful and quiet. I don't feel the stress
let me just
a big city.
I want to come back to that. Let me just do this. So, is that you, Era? You're coming in from Norway? Your microphone's not too good. Anyways, just want to acknowledge Era. I haven't talked to her in a long time. She seems to have phoned in, but if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Oh, well. So you're, as a Mexican, you were brought up with a special sense of being at the center of the universe and the great survivors. All this was told to you as a kid? Is this part of what they teach in the schools? Is it part of the cultural bias?
Well, there's like a type of mystic that you learn in history, like it's hard to reconcile both sides of the European and the indigenous. Some people may identify with one side or with the other side. But there is also like a sense of like a big destiny or Like we are always told that we are like the door to all Latin America, and we in a way are supporting the attacks and the imperialist policies of America. And it's amazing that there is this fiction still of a country called Mexico now. The policies are more aggressive and everything is being privatized, and some intellectuals say the country is being dismembered, and they seem to want to like to fusion America and Canada around the year 2018. But the culture is so different, and I don't know if that will be possible.
But the rest of South America is mad at Mexico. Right, but the rest of South America is mad at Mexico for being the extension.
Actually, they actually see Mexico as some type of warrior nation that is defending all of the other countries. That is
a buffer.
Resisting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The buffer from the United States monster. It
has been. It took a long time to infiltrate the society, and for example, there is a glamorization of all the drug cartels in pop culture and in films and in music. A little like the rappers, that younger people may think that's cool, like to be a drug dealer, or like a rapper thing, but more like in the cartels. And these are things that are take a long time to introduce in the country, but they had been doing these things a long time ago. And for example, some of the people in the cartels say they are like recruited when they're very young. First, they are used as just to take drugs from one place to the other. Then they can be chauffeurs. Then they're given weapons, and like that. They have a long training, and some may then. The most intelligent go to universities, and their studies are paid, or they go into the army or the police, so that the cartels have their people. And this infiltration takes a long time, but it has been going on for a while. So the situation is changing, and it seems like there is no more countries, but these mafias and corporations that are controlling these businesses that are human trafficking, weapons, and organ trafficking, and all types of things that are just seen as businesses.
So here's Zappa. Uncle Meat gets a group called Ruben the Jets, and they're Mexicans. So Zappa was aware that he and Roy Estrada and Jimmy Carr Black maybe looked Mexican, especially the name Zappa is like Zapata. So it's interesting that Zappa puts on the Mexican warrior image versus the American Empire. And then he puts out an album called Roxy and Elsewhere. I think Roxy can start to xenocratically think that she's a hidden motif in Zappa's work. You can start claiming xenocracy here.
It was released on my birthday.
Of course. Yeah, what? It was. What was released? What'd you? Well, Roxy and Elsewhere was released on your birthday?
The remake.
Really?
Yeah, the movie was made a long time ago, but it was released last year on my birthday, on Halloween.
Which is October 31st.
Yeah.
Right? Halloween.
So, of course, I say yes.
You know that Zappa's favorite...
Yes.
Yes, but Zappa's favorite holiday... That's right. Zappa's favorite holiday, and the one where he did the first world simulcast in Halloween 1981, first TV rock stereo simulcast, whatever it was, he did it on your birthday. So another reason Roxy is the hidden ground of Susie Cream Cheese. Roxy is Susie Cream Cheese. You're the little Debbie. It's the whole music industry. You're the little Debbie that Zappa's working for. Well, that's quite cute. What else is in there, Mexican? Now, he has a song called Portuguese. Now, listen to this. He has a song called Portuguese Moon Landing. Now, does that strike you as funny, that term, Portuguese Moon Landing?
Yeah, I do. I think it's funny.
No, you find it funny. What's the joke there?
Yeah. That the Portuguese landed on the moon.
Yeah. Well, why is that funny?
Just because of all the news that Russia and the United States going on the moon, and then he comes out with this title that the Portuguese landed on the moon. That's what I find funny. Because it's not mainstream.
Okay, so right, what Coker calls the cloning of America around the world. So all these second world countries reaching to become first world try to adopt the game shows and the style of American cultural content. So they're a cloning. Well, part of being in America would be to have your own moon landing. So you have this small country, not of any great fame or power, it has to have its own moon landing. It's part of the stupidity of technological imitation, that every culture has to have their moon landing. So it's a satire on the group mind or on tribal patriotism. That's what I see it as. Somalian moon landing. Yay! That would be about 3,000 years from now. Somalia finally lands a man on the moon. So it's a great comedy, Portuguese moon landing. But let's try Era again. Era, you want to speak? Can we have a voice from Norway, the home of Finn? Finn again awake. Well, no comment. All right, so what do we do next? We got some more commercials. This one. Well, that's a 27-minute one. I think that's it. I think I've done everything. Somebody named Paul Federspell commented on the video Roxy shared. Paul Federspell says, not being covered in U.S. Thanks, Roxana. So what was that? Which one is not being covered in U.S.? Civil War in Germany. You posted something. Civil War in Germany? Leipzig and migrants crisis. Oh, yeah, you were telling me about that. The Civil War has broken out.
Yes, because everybody's freaking out. There is more violence, and I was not aware because I never listened to the news and all that, but some people were telling me there is a lot of violence, for example, in the public transportation, and most of the weekends there are like born cars, and some people is really freaking out, like they don't want to go out late, and they don't want to do anything anymore, especially women. And yes, maybe in some places there has been really big confrontations, and people here feel it's not fair that they have no say in what's going on, and in medias from other countries, just because they protest, they call them Nazis. There are also these, like the Payday, the Nazi movement, but there is a lot of normal people, like housewives and normal people that just don't see any logic in the situation, and they just don't see how to solve this crisis. And Netanyahu was here last week, and he said they're in the middle of that conflict, but they are fighting for the same values that Germany has. And
who said that?
In a way, Netanyahu.
Who said that, Roxy?
The Prime Minister of Israel. Prime Minister of Israel. He was visiting last week.
Right.
And
is that Netanyahu? Is he the Prime Minister?
They had been. Yes. He said they had been living with that situation always, and they're like sort of giving advice to Germany what to do in this situation, how to deal with this conflict.
Yeah, it's funny. Looking at the video, the police seem
maybe we should ask Kayan.
Right. The police seem to be moving towards something, and then there's all this tear gas, and the police seem to be running away. Shows them running, retreating.
Yes, because there had been demonstration from both sides of like the more radical and the less radical people, and German people feel that they're being separated because of this crisis, and that was actually a confrontation between the most radical and the people that were somehow demonstrating against the radical demonstration. So they had a confrontation, and the police had to intervene to stop the fighting in the streets.
Where was that?
Leipzig is in the east. Yeah.
Right. LaRouche used to go to Leipzig a lot in the 70s. I guess because he was Bolshevik connected, he would go to East Germany. Now, you notice Zappa said that the Soviet Union is like the United States in the perks, like the Communist Party people. That's a populist way of talking about how the Bolshevik sensibility has taken over the United States. He actually was saying a Dr. Beater point there. Only I would notice. Only I would notice that. I mean, Beater said that the Bolsheviks took over the Pentagon, and they're running the Republican Party, and so at least their doubles are running the Republican Party. And then Zappa says there's something similar between the Republican outreach with their special dinners and the way the Communist Party gives perks to its bureaucracy, to its elite. That's a kind of overlap I used to like in the Holy Offices. You know, between McLuhan, Beater, they would resonate with each other in their unique views. That was an interesting new form of pattern connecting that I'd come across. I created that. What is this I that keeps saying this? Who is this Bob that Ian keeps talking about? Everybody got a clue?
Yeah, how did you
Also
start
interesting
all
how
this
Frank
weird continuum?
But in LaRouche.
What'd you say, Bert?
Also interesting how Frank sometime parallels LaRouche. But when I listen to the interviews, I can hear it. Oh.
Yes.
That's right, you prompted him.
Did you hear what he just said? One of the things I played was he says, the CIA equals the mafia equals the Vatican equals something else, government or something. He makes that connection. That's a Mae Brussel pattern.
Yeah.
So,
did you talk to him about the Berlin Wall?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's a good point to bring up. No, I predicted the Berlin Wall would go down in October 16th, 1988. Interviewed Jerry Fialka's backyard by whatever that guy, Genesis, Dave Porter's show, Genesis of Music. Now, I don't know if I saw this, but in June '88, Zappa was on Johnny Carson. Like, the band had broken up, his tour had been aborted, so he was doing the talk shows, and he talked about how he did something. He went over to the wall when he was in Germany and proposed something to the various governments. But we heard him saying he did do that. And he said it on June '88, and he was sort of trying to push for tear the wall down, but he had some practical solutions. I don't think he could say that he knew it would come down. No, he could say that in general. He knew it would come down, but he had to force it. He was trying to convince the powers that be, and I can't remember the project. You could probably go online, look up a 1988 Johnny Carson Zappa interview and hear it. So there he talked about it in '88, and so that overlapped with what I was thinking, and then I got to say it in Los Angeles, and then the next day, I said October 16th, then 5 days later I'm in Zappa's house. But we never got on to the to talking about modern events too much because Bob Marshall was there and Jerry Fialka, and I don't think Zappa would talk to me the way we used to talk privately in front of them. But we did talk about the surveillance in Zappa, the FBI monitoring of him. That was discussed, and he talked about that in front of Jerry. So, but the Berlin Wall did not get mentioned. I did not tell him that I had made that prediction. Now, when I was with him in 1985, I told him about Dr. Beater, and he didn't show much interest in that. And then we find out 30 years later, his little play, Cat and Beefheart and the Grunt People, Cat and Beefheart versus or meets the Grunt People, he has a little organic robotoids in it. So there was a curious overlapping of these guys, but that they wouldn't acknowledge each other.
Yeah.
Which is the supposed individualism of the artistic temperament. You can't get artists together. They don't want to get into the group mind. Yes, Roxy?
Zappa claimed he was an atheist, but he had so many Mason books that Moon Unit published in her Twitter account when Gail died. So do you think he was a Mason? Because Masons are supposed to believe in a God.
No, Zappa wasn't any group. He was too unpopular. He was a nerd, or he was a antisocial juvenile delinquent. There's no group that would have him. That's what he thought was absurd, that the Republican Party was asking him to come to the dinner. And it sort of meant that they didn't know who anybody was that they were sending the cards out. So they were, it's either a con job, just sending out cards to anybody to come pretend you're going to get access to some corporate executive or something. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, Zappa was mocking the fact they were asking him to be a Republican.
Real insiders know.
What'd you say?
Both sides work for the same people. Like
yes, that's right.
The people behind the thrones are financing both sides, and that's why maybe it doesn't matter.
Right, that's
They're
true.
Just
good point.
The illusion of two different parties and two different types of programming the environment, but the policies
still programming the environment.
Actually continue to, even if the party changes, the same policies are continued, like the Democrats or the Republicans don't really change the agenda.
Right. The content doesn't change. The propaganda of the forms. The propaganda of the forms is always constant. You know, propaganda is the environment in action, not the messages. The content, the messages of who gets to sit in the White House is subservient to the language of the forms. But the forms have merged with the content. That's what's happening homeopathically in the Android meme for the last 30, 40 years. So let me just see something here. This has Bert.
Yes, because, for example, the Secret Council of 10, when you were in the Secret Council of 10, you were programming the world or America,
yes.
Or how did that work?
We were monitoring the changes to see if we would be forced to do practical tetrad management, because tetrad management was being done by the intelligence agency. So we would monitor what the new technologies would be to see if that we had to take over that role. But it never got to that point. The Secret Council 10 never got the responsibilities of government because all government collapsed by 1990. So there was no position of tetrad management anymore.
Was Zappa aware that you were Secret Council of 10?
Zappa, McClellan, LaRouche never said it, but it seemed to be unspoken. I mean, I think Zappa would, and I wouldn't emphasize it because then I didn't know how he'd react, but he had to think about how come I knew this and knew that. And he was smart enough to say, well, I'm not going to say Bob CIA because then I'll indicate I know, and then Bob won't come around anymore. So it was kind of wink, wink, don't say it, and just take advantage of what I offered him. I think that's the way it was with McLuhan, LaRouche, and Zappa. Now, Bieter, he was almost Secret Council 10 himself, so he knew. Bieter knew what was happening, because when we came to him in 1972 in Africa to tell him about what was going to happen in America as the Watergate unfolded, the people I was with were intelligence agents that he had acquaintance with. Remember, he was friends with Saudi princes, with the Japanese elite, all over the place. So, and then Bieter was part of the gold deal we did with the Queen. So he knew, but it wasn't. He had intelligence agents around him feeding him information besides me. So it wasn't a big deal for him. He had lived in that world since the 50s. Remember, he had been a member of the American Space Society. So he was born in 1921. So in his early 30s, he met Werner von Braun and some of those German Project Paperclip people that were pushing for a space program. And he was doing that in the early 50s. And he was in the CIA, he was in the office intelligence world during World War II as a young lawyer wannabe. And remember that Bieter tried to do what we're doing. He tried to sort of weaken the Rockefeller position. He and another guy, I forget his name, he did a book. He was Roosevelt's cousin or son-in-law, Colonel somebody. They were trying in the 80s, 70s, and 80s to bypass the Rockefeller power with his information that he was releasing. And then he said the Rockefellers stopped them. They prevented a big gold deal that Bieter was going to do. And then that's what Bieter told me all about within a couple of weeks after Ion showed up. I had a long session like I did with James Joyce with Dr. Bieter. I don't know if I ever played that. Is that Bert? Did I ever play me talking to Beater? I wonder.
I don't remember.
Right. Well, that's Bert.
That was his.
That's Bart.
If it's relevant to.
Well, I have to listen to it again. I think there's a reason maybe I haven't played it. I have to see what we say, what I wouldn't want released. So, Bart.
I was going to say that was the secret. That was the secret council of 10. This is the public council of 11. Yes.
Bob is the non-physical leader, and the only council is the public. Yes, the public has taken over. It's a pure democracy.
Is it an anti-council?
No, it's the People's Council. People's Republic of Bob.
All right, Public Council of 11.
People's Republic of Bob. Yeah. The public, the well-known Council of 11.
Droppers, anonymous.
In your face. Yeah, unknown's anonymous. The well-known, irritating, in-your-face Public Council of 11.
The Rogue or Maverick.
Droppers Anonymous? What did she say? Droppers Anonymous?
Drop takers.
Okay.
Drop takers anonymous.
Well, Bert, you're in.
Hello, my name.
So Bert,
Rocks.
We don't. What'd you say, Roxy?
She shouted something and laughed.
I think they introduced it talk about their problems with alcohol in groups, and so I'm like making a parody of that.
We're the absurd council then.
Enforcing rogues.
Or the Maverick council.
We're the porno version of Council 10.
Well, no, we're the legit. They're the porno version of Council 11.
Okay, let's see. Yes. Here, you heard me deliberate that. Now let me go and look at. I can go to my inventory of all my recordings. So let's see this.
Yeah, I wanted to say to Roxy too that Zappa may have had those Masons books because Zappa was researching. He wasn't necessarily. I don't know what the term is. Pledging. I would say he's got all that just because he was researching.
Yeah. He was not a member of the Freemasons. He made fun of the Freemasons in his story about the Grand Wazoo. The Grand Wazoo.
Roxana, what did Moon Unit post any text? Was she posted
no, that was in the Twitter of Moon Unit.
Yeah, but did she have any text with it? But she just posted.
Do you remember when Gail? No, she has a Twitter account, and when Gail died, she published pictures of Frank's Mason books, and he had a lot. So I thought maybe if you want to be a presidential candidate, you have to go through this type of initiations, and you have to belong to this type of groups, of clubs, and have your blue card.
Yeah, I've read that.
I was just asking, maybe.
Yeah, I think that was probably the most maybe occult material you could get your hands on back when he was probably buying that. Or not occult, but just as far as secret societies. They probably had a limited library on that subject. And I wonder where Peter Beater was making his broadcasts early on, and did you already mention that Frank had maybe heard those broadcasts, or Did Bob say at any point that yeah.
No, Bert, Peter did not do broadcasts. He just made what he called an audio letter. He just would go into a private recording studio and make an hour-long news just talk and record it, and then you subscribe to the tape cassettes.
Okay. So but I wondered, did Zappa ever come across any of those?
No, Zappa. I don't think he knew anything of Peter. I told him, and he didn't take an interest in it. He didn't ask me about what I was talking about. He did say, before he got interested in Mae Brussel, I was talking to him about Mae, and he said, well, I don't care about fascists. I don't care about Nazis. He wasn't, at that point, interested in what Mae was an expert on. He had to catch up later. That's why he...
Yeah.
So I have here, Doctor, I went through my inventory of recordings, and let's see, this is... on March 25th, 2009. Now, that's right. That was the first real long session with Ion. You know, Ion started on March 18th. We didn't record that. Then we recorded March 20th. Then we did March 22nd. That's when I had the long talk, almost 2 hours with James Joyce. And then 3 days later, we did March 25th, and we went for 6 hours. And the first topic is the quadrillionaires. Not allowed to talk about that. Who are the quadrillionaires? Long section there. Then we did a lot on cold fusion. We were talking about Pons and Fleischmann's cold fusion. Ian was not telling me at that point that we were going to make it. This is just beginning. Then there's a section on Walter Boert. Then there's a section called Strategy of Ions Communication. It says here, Ions teasing of us to evoke insights, teasing in quotes. Ions teasing of us to evoke insights. Ion can see, hear, feel our fan, the fan, the heat fan, the cooler. He could see, feel, and hear our fan in our room, the electrical mechanism. Let's see. Then there's a section on total biology. I guess Carolyn asked about that. Then there's a section on astrology. Then it says Dr. Peter Beater. And there's a whole bunch of notes. That's my long talk with Beater. And it's...
with a lot of black marker going through them?
Yes, a lot of... what's it called? Redact. And so it was an hour and a half. Start at 3:24 of the session, 3 hours and 24 minutes, and go to 10 minutes to 5. That's an hour and a half, basically. So that was quite, I don't know, there's a lot of interesting, Beater. I mean, remember, he's a factor in causing Ion. Remember that?
Right. Yeah, the message from Beater.
Thinking that Dr. Yeah, he said, tell Bob, and then the ghost around JW. So I said, well, if Dr. Beater's there, maybe this is the Evergreen. So he caused it. So we had a very long talk. So I'd have to go through that and figure out what I could play. I see there's talk about the Queen, the Bilderbergers, the Rothschilds, Beater's daughters, stuff about the Guff, the Queen's lifestyle, the Rockefellers, the Russian Mafia, Lemurians.
Your kin?
Both Lemurians. That's just Ian scaring me. Ian is making a whole bunch of statements, but he's building up a file so that when push comes to shove and we have to fight it out like, what's that movie where the guns are aimed at each other? Quentin movie.
Oh, Pulp Fiction?
The Blues Brothers? Yeah, Pulp Fiction, where they end up, poised with the gun on each other, right? Everybody's got a gun on the faction. So that's what, I'll be pulling my file on Ian, and I will be pulling their file on me, It'll be a dead heat about who's going to ultimately take over. Will non-physical kill physical, or will physical kill non-physical? That's the battle. Ian's gloating right now. He thinks he's way ahead of me, saying, we're taking over the cloud. We're creating our own cloud, Bob. Your files will be in our closet. See, it's all who provides the closet of storage.
Yes, but
container.
You should have told Ian that information's obsolete. It's useless.
I did. That's why he's always putting up. He's hoping that people believe that Zappa is just making noise, that McLuhan's a fucking idiot, that LaRouche is a useless guy just trying to get up your bum. All these things are smearing of Bob's basic structure. It's a battle of ideas. And getting who's going to believe what. Yes, that's what Andrew Crystal said. Bob, there seems to be a curious competition going on between you and Ion.
No, but they were all
you guys on?
Important to overlay what he's saying.
Yes, yeah.
We needed all these people's work to get where we are and
break open the public.
Could start.
Yeah, there had to be a song about the Portuguese moon landing to break up the frozen, fossilized memes that had been concretized under print conditions. Matter of fact, we should see if I can quickly bring up Portuguese moon landing. Maybe we could play it. I don't think I've ever listened to it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Portuguese moon landing.
That was a big day in their history.
When they had a history. When the mothers had lovers and the cows had fields.
You can see the... What was the company? I'm sorry, what was the song title?
Portuguese moon landing.
You can see the Portuguese people looking through the newsletters, trying to find out where they had the moon landing. Searching for news articles.
This is not Dr. Beater stuff.
No, I know.
It's Zappa. Beater stuff. Yeah, this is Zappa. But it's not listed. So now I've got to go to the great Googler and put in Zappa Portuguese Moonland and see where it comes up. Where could this be? See, with the one song, I've got 1,200 songs. The one song I want ain't there. See, isn't that the way life is? Yeah, it's parallel world. That's the way it is.
No,
the one
it's
song.
From a parallel world where
All I got to better call back in. You're starting to you blip out.
Is that Roxy?
Portuguese.
Yeah, all I got to say to Portugal is we beat you by 6 years.
What was that?
You're saying that to Portugal?
Yeah, I'm saying we got you by 6 years.
And who is we?
The U.S. We landed in 68.
So what were you saying? No. Did she say something?
That the Portuguese landed on the moon in a parallel world.
Yes.
That's from a Zappa from a parallel world where the Portuguese land on the
Good point.
Yeah, and they did it in 1967. They beat the Americans by 2 years.
Yeah, so we'll have to look at the song lyrics in that light.
Yeah, well, look, I put in Zappa Portuguese moon landing, and up comes a YouTube. It says Frank Zappa Portuguese lunar landing rehearsals 1981 audio. So it's like some kind of rehearsal. Let's see what this is. I've never seen this. Never heard it. I don't know what it's going to be. Let me mute everybody in case we do a perfect production. Everybody must be quiet.
All participants are now muted.
This is significant. Have I got everything in position? Yep. Okay, is everybody unplugged?
Yes.
And that is a rehearsal, and we have the lyrics of the rehearsal, and Did you hear? They talk about blood. One of the choruses is, give head if you wanna, or blood if you're gonna.
No, I could not really understand.
No, you couldn't make out any of the words, so I'm going to read you the words. It was a Portuguese lunar landing, Redondo Beach and all. A fascinating evening full of shrimp and rugged thrall, with a tank of duty water, sort of like living water, with a tank of duty water which a cleric had designed. Well, that guy could be accused of being a cleric. They pushed a secret plunger made of SpongeBob, for all mankind, and launched a rumpled rocket just to see what they might find. A rumpled rocket. Now remember, that's sort of like Billy and the rocket back in Captain Beefheart versus the Grunt People in 1964. Remember the cheesy little rocket Billy made? Went to the moon?
Yeah.
So it's sort of an update of that. He goes, here we are. It seems like yesterday. Little craters, rather brittle. Yes, I knew they'd be this little. No air for making noises. Hot in the sunny part, cold in the shade. That'd be your temperature choices. We joined the
air.
Portuguese astronaut on the... Yeah, no air for making noises. So it's hot in the sunny part, cold in the shade. Right. That'd be your temperature choices. We joined the Portuguese astronaut on the moon, where he has just discovered a mysterious creature wandering about. And in true Portuguese fashion, he sings to it with the help of his buddies. It seems to be, and I don't know if maybe they're singing this, it seems to be moving along under its own steam, if steam itself was possible here. But since it's not, I guess I got not a heck of a lot to fear. Not a heck of a lot to fear. But is that a tear? Is that an ear? Is it really, really moving? Is it really coming near? If I turn around and run, will it get me on the rear and chew my booty and chew my booty and chew my booty and chew my booty? I wonder if it talks or what it might just say. I wonder if I get paid extra for finding this sucker today. So here he is encountering the usual monster. For finding this sucker today. If the TV camera's on, there'll be a picture when it's gone. And I'll be Portuguese and famous in the astro-cosmic dawn. Fweet, 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 little fella. You hear Zappa telling them to do the fweet, fweet, fweet a couple of times. Fweet, 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 little fella. Walk toward the camera and smile. That's it. Fweet, fweet, fweet. Jesus, it's 30 feet long. Let me adjust this dial. That's sort of like the dial of the hologram. That's right. Hold it. That's a real nice shot. Don't you come no closer to me. I got a Portuguese wife and a Ford and a knife, and I want them all to see. No, get back, get back, get back. Get your suckers off the side of my shoe. No, get back, get back, get back. I'll be forced to kung your fu. Kung fu. I'll be forced to kung your fu. If you ooze onto me, all the gas will come out, and I'll choke in my suit. And I'll choke in my suit of the sky. So stop, or I'll shoot through the flange on your glute, and trample on the stalk of your eye, and trample on the stalk of your eye. I said 4 times. No, get back, get back, get back. What a horrible way to go. Get back, get back, get back. No, no, no. And it says, never trust no monster, home or away. They never do mean you no good. They always munch and bite and chew, because that's their livelihood. I best repeat, people, you're their meat. Don't you never give in to their line. Any old place they'll seek you out. That's where they're going to wine and dine. While your eye's on the sparrow, they're going to scarf up your marrow and confiscate your spine. Going to say it again. Don't you never give in. Don't you even read the sign. Don't you never give in or give up or give out or give way or move over again. Give head if you want to or blood if you're going to. But remember what I'm telling you, men. Give head if you want to or blood if you're going to. But remember what I'm telling you, men. So it's said a couple more times. And it says, there's some kind of monster around every corner. Want to whip some ooze on you. Just tell them to beat it if you don't want to eat it and keep on charging through. Just tell them to beat it if you don't want to eat it and keep on charging through. Give head if you want to or blood if you're going to. But remember what I'm telling you, men, and let's repeat it. So, you want to hear that now? Now you know the words? What do you think? Or have you had enough of that? Oh, did I mute you guys? No, you're open.
No. You can play it again.
I actually like the tune.
Yeah.
It says here in one of the Zappa. What? So here right, but let me just tell you, in the Zappa forum, it says Zappateers.com, the song was played in the first shows of the Bongo Fury tour. That's in April 1975. April 11th and April 11th, 1975 in California, April 18th, 1975, and I was on stage on April 25th in Long Island, Nassau Coliseum, in that month. But I don't remember this song or anything, but I didn't catch everything that was going on. I was just wondering if I could get
you were the Portuguese Major Tom.
I was? Did you say I was? What?
The Portuguese Major Tom.
Oh, Portuguese Major Tom. Major Major Tom. Yes. Major joke there by Roxy. Major laugh from Bob. Ha ha ha.
There's a little Finneganese in this.
Damn right, there's some Finneganese. But let me tell you. So we were saying that that month. Oh yeah, I was too busy doing air guitar and wondering if I'd be thrown off stage to notice what was being played. So I missed it. But this is actual. this is an actual. It says somebody goes, "I'm trying to find a full performance of the song Portuguese Lunar Landing. I know it's amongst the 81 tour rehearsals. Trying to find the full song performed. Anyone know if it was played at any shows or the most complete version of a rehearsal so I can get a good idea of the song? I.e., rehearsals are very stop-start." So then the guy says, well, it was played in early, so you have to have April 75 bootlegs. So they're hoping Zappa would release it. They all think it's a wonderful song. Portuguese Lunar Landing doesn't seem, no one seems to know if it ever was done or give us, I mean, I know it was done, but no one gives any bootlegs or anything. Someone says, just listen to one of the Claremont performance. The bad quality rating is a mystery. Sounds quite nice, actually. Is that what these? No. Okay, so you guys demanded it. Here we go. Or maybe not. I have to find it again. Did I throw it away? I may have thrown it away. You may never hear it again. Let me see. What can I do to solve that problem?
Okay.
Here it is. Here, I solved it. Here it is. I must make all the sounds are up. I got to click on the noise factor, and I've never really heard much of Zappa rehearsing. Pretty neat.
So the Portuguese had kind of a rough time at it. They got monsters on their trip. We didn't get anything. Keep on charging through. Keep on charging through.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. I was looking for the line. Give head if you wanna, or blood if you're gonna.
Yeah.
Yes,
register to vote. Look what Bob is doing to your...
Doing to what? I like the duty water that a cleric can design. What's the word you're saying, Roxy? Is it vote?
What? Vote.
Hey!
Register to vote.
I told you a whole bunch of great information, and I realized I was on mute. Sorry, folks. No. Listen, Bert. This is Bert. When Roxy returns to public performance of her electronic career, I want you to go to the concert in the middle of it, interrupt it, and request Portuguese lunar landing, and see if Roxy.
I will
play her.
Yes.
If you ever perform in public, Roxy, we are going to demand you to do Portuguese lunar landing.
I'm going to shout it at the top of my lungs until you play it.
You're going to sing, actually.
Can you do it? Could you do it again, or is there too much attention on you? Can you do it again? Can you do it?
Sing a couple bars. Keep on charging through. Keep on charging through. Keep on charging through. Give head if you want, or blood if you're gonna.
Blood is going to come. Yeah, blood if you're going to. Okay, here comes Jimmy Carl Black doing Zappa as conductor. Let's see what he tells us.
The common one was this signal, and when he did that, it was supposed to go peep. There was one that was supposed to go like booyah, like, and he'd kind of do this, and then when he did something like this, that meant a solo.
He would make a fist like this, and when he went like that, that means you were supposed to play the lowest group of notes that you could.
Now the next is two fingers, and this requires that you make a very low noise. You can go any low noise that you want to make with your mouth on cue for two fingers like this. Are you ready? Everybody at once. Now, our band will watch. Two fingers down like this means to play any low note on your instrument, just a sort of bump cutoff, like an exclamation point. Now here is just the opposite of that. The highest possible note on your instrument. Okay, we'll start with a P.
Yeah, that's what it feels.
He was right.
That's what it feels like here.
Go ahead. In what sense? You feel like that was the best band?
Part of the Public Council of 11.
Oh, that's here. Right. Bob's band.
Yes,
Bob's band. Oh, that's right. I was temporarily distracted by the past.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Now look that up.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you got to watch it. You got to watch it. Look up. Put in Zappa, the best conductor ever. 10 minutes of incredible footage. Many scenes of him conducting, frantically conducting. Oh, were you looking at it, Bert?
I've seen it before.
No.
I saw it like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like that what Jimmy Carl Black says, that Frank, he could make mistakes. Nobody else could, but he could. Is that taking his power? Is that someone who has their empire, has their power?
I was sort of equating that to Ion and the way that he conducts, they conduct, and that Ion makes mistakes, but they're deliberate.
Yeah, they got instant alibis. If you call him on it, he can beat you on his correction or his alibi of what the explanation. That's right. Ion's always making mistakes. Quite frequent if you're paying attention. In little slip-ups, like calling Bert
They accuse
Wendy or something. What?
No, they accuse Ian to read from the Wikipedia.
Yes.
They accuse Ian of reading from the Wikipedia.
But imperfectly.
Yes, yeah, right. And then he says, well, we stuck a bunch of shit, and he goes quickly, he goes, no, we've quoted things that aren't in there. And you haven't got the time to go check that.
Right.
Do you remember any of the quotes? Can you go back and quickly check it? No. It'd take you half an hour to prove whether he was lying or not, or didn't have that accurate. But I imagine there were a few obscure quotes he said that I would say weren't in there. I think he was right about that. Yeah. But, Jimmy Carl Black, here's Bert. No, who would this be? This would be, who screwed up? ASA Scott would say. Yeah, you didn't want to screw up, man, because Ian would turn around and look at you. Hey, man, you wouldn't want to witness that stare at you. Imagine Ian staring at you. The face of Bo looking at you. He's worse than the Funambulance monster.
Disapprovingly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what would I look like when he's disapproving? How would that look?
Hands on the hips.
Basically, you would literally... Yeah, he put his hands on his hips, he'd look at you, and then you'd blow up. After that, you'd quickly be blown up.
So like a 50s housewife and doing scanners on you.
Yeah.
Disapproving mom or whatever.
It looked like David Bowie in his last video.
Like you become a member of the Church of the Subgenius.
Yeah. Ian has this funny line. He's describing me. He says, it began way back there, back when Stang began. He has me begin when Stang began. It's very cute, some of the things he said. It's like talking to your buddy who's been hanging around with you for 30 years, knows all the details. Well, that's what Ian's like. He goes, way back when it began with Stang. He knows.
Back in the Stang days, yeah.
Okay, so what? Let me get my documentation.
When Pluto was a planet.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go through the archives and find a nice article on Zappa. Let's see. Okay. This one's called I Dreamed I Interviewed Frank Zappa in My Maiden Form Bra by David Reitman. Now, maybe I should go to the interview section. Maybe that's... I dreamed I interviewed Frank Zappa in my maiden form bra. So I will go to the Zappa list because that's probably one of the better archives. Let's see. Find a good Zappa archive. Zappa archive. Articles, 1975. There it is, 1971. So this is probably easier to read. Okay, so David Reitman. Ever since I inadvertently became a rock and roll journalist, it has been my ambition to do the interview with Frank Zappa. Most interviews with Zappa failed, largely because the interviewers didn't know enough to ask him some really challenging questions or because they kissed his ass. I was going to avoid the latter, even though Zappa is one of my idols. I would plan the questions with great care, do the interview in privacy with good recording equipment. Anne-Marie Miklo, our managing editor, and he worked for Rock magazine, Miklo, our managing editor, looked at me one morning and said, quote, "We've got an interview with Zappa, but we have to go right now." We've got an interview with Zappa, but we have to go right now, unquote. No time to go to my radio station, WKCR-FM, and get a Tandberg or an Electro Voice 663. No, we grab a crummy Panasonic cassette machine, mistake number one. I grabbed the 3 record reviews I've done of Zappa's music, Burnt Winnie Sandwich, Weasels Rip My Flesh, and Jean-Luc Ponty's King Kong, mistake number 2, and head for Zappa's Hotel in the Rain. This is probably in New York City. When we arrive, there seems to be a great ambiguity as to when the interview will start, and I annoy Zappa by setting up the microphone in front of him while he is eating, mistake number 3. To break the ice, I give him my 3 reviews. He looks at them and says, quote, "So you're the one who said that," unquote, referring to my review of Weasels Rip My Flesh, where I criticized one piece called Prelude to the Afternoon of a Sexually Aroused Gas Mask by saying we had heard Motorhead snork before, and, you know, Motorhead used to make these snorking noises. So he, by saying we had heard, what's he saying? So you're the one who said that, referring to my review where I criticized one piece by saying we had heard Motorhead snork before besides Penderecki, Ligeti, or Kenneth Gaburo, all names that Roxy probably knows, could do it better in the use of a chorus. Do you know Kenneth Gaburo, Gaburo, Roxy? Do you know Ligeti?
Well,
Penderecki, you know.
Names, yeah.
Have you heard Kenneth Gaburo? I don't know that name. You have, okay. Zappa was pissed, and he asked me to prove it.
Yes,
I guess pissed that Motorhead snorked before. That did it. My ego was crushed. There was my idol, and he was fucking yelling at me. Yelling at me. I couldn't answer. I couldn't even speak. Zappa compared the snorks of Motorhead to the music of Jimmy Reed, a rather dubious comparison. Reed has worked longer and harder at his craft than Motorhead. Then he said the composers I mentioned would envy what he could do with a live chorus. In some cases, perhaps, but in this particular case, never would they envy. So Zappa's saying that Penderecki, Ligeti, and Gaburo would emphasize, envy Zappa. Then he says, I felt as if someone had pulled the plug on my adrenaline, and from there on I was an emotional cripple. I reacted to Zappa's hostility in a predictable way by knuckling under to him. All right, so I kissed his ass. His hostility continued as he kept walking away from the interview to answer the phone, to talk, etc. Maybe I was paranoid, but he certainly didn't seem to enjoy himself. Left with no defense, I tried a cheap trick. I tried to impress him with my knowledge of music. After a while, he seemed not to hate me so much, and the latter part of the interview was interesting. He showed me some of his scores and even invited Anne-Marie and I to a rehearsal at the Fillmore. See, I knew he was in New York. Unfortunately, the crummy Panasonic wasn't working right, so most of that part of the interview was lost, so all that is left is the hostile part. So I guess this interview is another of a long line of failures. Not a total failure, but it just doesn't get at the essence of the man. Also present in our cast of characters besides Zappa, him and Anne-Marie, were two other mothers, Mark Volman and Ainsley Dunbar. Have fun. I didn't. So here's the interview. So David says, what's happening with 200 Motels and other extended orchestral projects? Zappa says, you see this box here points to a large trunk in the center room. Well, there's a reason why that box is sitting here in this room, because I'm finishing the screenplay for 200 Motels. We're going to shoot it in England. It's going to be a United Artists feature-length movie, and we're supposed to have a press conference to announce our deal. Who's making the film? Me. Can you tell us what's going to happen in the film? Yeah, we have the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and we are in the process of negotiating with Gunther Schuller to conduct it. He wants to do it. It's just a matter of figuring out whether we can afford him. There's a 40-voice choir, 12 dancers, Mothers of Invention. Just a minute, Mothers jumped around. There's a 40-voice choir, 12 dancers, Mothers of Invention, new and old. Are you bringing them all back together for this movie? No, just a few of the members are going to be over there. I have both old film and live appearances. Don Preston is going to be the monster. Motorhead's going to be one of the dancers. Jimmy Carl Black's going to play Lonesome Cowboy Bert. And who else are we negotiating with? He asked the question. Theodore Bickel to be the narrator. And half an hour of the film is animated. Who's doing the animation? Murakami Wolf. It's a company in Los Angeles. It's all being designed by Cal Schenkel. Have you heard other works using orchestra or choir, such as Adam Hart Mother by Pink Floyd and Quartermass by Peter Robinson? No, I haven't heard any of those, says Zappa. Then Mark Volman, one of the Turtles and a Mother Invention, says, I've heard both. They're both rather depressing attempts. Zappa says, the manner in which the orchestra and chorus and the other people being combined for this presentation is not like, quote, here it is, kids, the missing link between rock and roll and classical music, unquote. He says it's not like that. It's a little bit different concept. David says, I always thought those things failed because they had a rock and roll band and wrote for strings in the style of Schumann or Brahms. Zappa says, that's true, and at the same time, you can't have serious music and just write out some funky guitar, bass, ostinato lines. and have the string section do it. Is that what quartermass is? He says to Mark. Mark says, yes. That's not exactly what quartermass is, but I didn't want... So David says, he disagrees with Mark. He says, that's not exactly what quartermass is, but I didn't want to get into another fight, so I kept my mouth shut. Peter Robinson does occasionally write for strings like Xenakis or Penderecki. And he cites a song called Laughing Tackle. You're talking about what... And Mark says, you're talking about what they do, man. They sit around and think of a way they can impress the public. The only thing for orchestra I like was the Moody Blues when they did that thing with the London Philharmonic. In brackets, David says, I detest the Moody Blues, but I bit my lip and said nothing. And then Mark says, you know which album I mean? David says, no. Mark says, the first one they did before they started getting successful. By this time, Zappa was off talking on the phone. Anne Marie says, what happened to Uncle Meat? Zappa says, we had money to finish that picture, and all of a sudden the people who gave us the money took the money back. I couldn't do anything more with it. I had 40 minutes of a cut at the time. I had 40 minutes of a cut at the time the money ran out. Anne asked Zappa about a particular weekend at the Fillmore where this girl sang, but she was so off mic it was lost. Zappa says, that was a great night. In fact, the 2 nights we played there, all 4 shows had stuff in it that looked so outrageous. And I came up with maybe 2 albums out of those 2 nights. Just crazy. I wonder where that chick is. One night we improvised an opera. At this point, Anne and Zappa discussed